Awesome. Come on out, guys. It's time for the review. What's going on, guys? Today we're taking a look at the Perfect Strike Freedom, trying to get through all these Battlogue kits because the new releases are nearing. Another Strike Gundam iteration is... well, it's kind of like all those new Taco Bell items. You know, we don't really ask for them. It's just a combination of all the same stuff, but we get it and it's delicious. So, like, who's really complaining? Hopefully this will be the same. We got lovely pink hair. Sun couple. She's a couple. She don't look thick like a couple, I'll tell you that. Instructions are pretty cool. I really hope this backpack stands up, but that's what action bases are for if they're not. Starting off, we don't have many stickers, which is like, you know, we'll see. It seems like there's a decent amount of colors though. Right off, we got some beautiful like olive green, some light blue. We have a wire, some nice white parts with some good lines. Lots of effect pieces, which is cool. Should be able to get some nice, like, you know, effects. Have a light gray, a beautiful beam shield piece, and the eyepiece is clear. See, we got our head parts. Not like a ton of polycaps, so they're more polycaps. That's fine. Red, the V-fin's pretty narrow, which is interesting. Like, I know that from looking at it, but it's still just, I don't know, normally you got more of that, like, you know, like wide. All these black parts are interesting. I'm not used to having so many like solid black parts in a high grade kit. So that'll be neat. They're also really like big like molds. That backpack, man. That thing's gonna be huge. Oh, brother. We got some expressive hands and some gripping hands, which is always a plus. Flipping over, we got more of our leg parts. More mechanical parts and some big old red funnel parts. Interesting is that, unlike the Reborn's Gundam, which had the two parts that lay flat against each other, these are already like set and just molded as one piece, which is pretty interesting. But let's see how it all pans out. Let's build it. Alright, so we're going to jump right into this build. I'm very curious about this giant backpack with the Dragoon funnels and whatnot. So I'm going to do that first instead of working on the body. And there are a lot of pieces on this backpack. We got pretty much all of those solid black pieces. Right now we've got the Lupus rifle, the experimental anti-ship saber belt. I do not like these funnels. The Dragoon funnels are all molded in one piece, as we discussed, but this means that there is a giant gate where it is connected to the runner, and it is so difficult to sand those parts down, and I feel like I got left with a really ugly stress mark even using my glass file. I might go back in and try to reactivate the plastic with some cement, but we'll see. I wish that they would have done it more like the Reborn's Gundam, which had both of the pieces laying flat together and smaller gates, but that's okay. I do like the overall shape now that it's built, and it bodes well that you can use those Aegis Gundam type bottom fins to stand itself up. Moving on to the main body, I will say that the V-fin being a two-part with the red piece connecting it in is not very fun to put together. I'd probably hit that with some Tamiya extra thin cement if I was you, just to keep it intact because it likes to pop out. There are a lot of really cool accessories on the arms, like this minigun on the right shoulder. It has a lot of great lines, which you'll see when I panel line it later. And then there's the wire old people stick grabby thing on this shoulder for the left arm that I'm building right now. It's also a lot of fun. Also included accessory wise, the green piece on the right arm on the shoulder or the forearm bracer is actually a stun gun, which is kind of interesting. And then we have the blue beam shield piece on the left arm as well. The legs were a fairly simple construction, nothing to really write home about. Probably hit those with some gray, so it's minimal. And here we have the finished product. We're not going to include the backpack for these first segments because I really want to make sure that we capture every part of this homage, since it is the Perfect Strike Freedom. I think it does a beautiful job. Here we have the Strike launcher package homage with the beam rifle and the minigun. First classic few episodes of Seed right here. A lot of great details. Those double jointed knees allow you to get really nice deep poses. We hit the darker colors with black, and we hit the whites with gray to keep it minimal. Next up, we have that wire launcher in action. We can have him setting up to grab you, pull you in like in Mortal Kombat, and then strike you down with that anti-ship bastard sword, which is really cool. Again, this is another homage. I think that this is a really good love letter to all things Gundam Seed. And I really like this kit a lot. If you want a comprehensive, high-grade Gundam Seed kit, this is really it. Next up, we're going to combine those two to create that giant rifle. The sword slides very nicely into the rifle to create this big one. I think technically I was supposed to take one of those beam pieces out when I have it in this form, but I just think it looks really nice. And Gunpla is freedom, so we're going to go ahead and leave that in. Next up, we have the Licht Blade, which is a defensive small beam blade that can be emitted from the shoulder if you're in close proximity to another mobile suit as a defensive measure. Before we get into the backpack, we have some Destiny Gundam elements with this beam shield. That red piece on the left bracer pops out, and you can put that nice effect piece right in there and snap it shut. We're really covering all the bases with this kit, which is nice. Finally, let's talk about the backpack. Now that we have the Gundam attached, you can see just how truly imposing it is, standing taller than the Gundam itself. And fortunately, it has these two back bottom fins, and those are reminiscent of the Aegis Gundam, if you remember. And with the increased size, you can actually use these as a kickstand, allowing you to pose the Perfect Strike Freedom without an action base if you wish, though the posing is a little stale without it, so I'd still get an action base in here. It's very tall. Each of those red bits, the funnels, will come off, which we will discuss later. We've got the two cannons on top, which will flip forward. And you can see, looking in the mirror on the bottom, all the nice molding detail in the vent on those bottom wing bits. Rounding back to the front, I did use brown on those light blue parts when I panda lined it, just to give it a little extra something. And it's just truly imposing. It's so ridiculous and over the top. I love everything about it, if I'm being honest. This kit was a lot of fun, and I chuckled a lot because it was like, oh wow, look, another gun, another weapon, another effect piece. Here we're going to pose it with an action base. You can see it about to do some full burst-esque. We got those cannons on top flipped forward. Those vents also flip. We've got the rifle and the arms stretched out, and those wings position themselves nicely, getting ready to launch an all-out assault. Now let's talk about the funnels. The funnels, while cool, you see there's 8 of them. There is nothing included to stand them up. They do slide in really nice, so that's a plus. However, we really needed some kind of workaround if you're going to include all these little bits. If it was like 2 or 3 little things, like, you can pose that pretty effectively. But I'll show you one of the workarounds that I thought up, and that's to use an action base 5 and just kind of set 1 or 2 of them. But doing this method, you're going to need a few of these action bases to do that. So I really wish that we had a Mercurius type clear piece to pose the planet defenser system to pose these funnels on. If you take off the Aegis Gundam funnel parts and flip the wings up, we have more Destiny Gundam influence. It vaguely resembles the wings. And lastly, let's take a look at the backpack itself, give it a once around. I really like the design. I would love to experiment with this, maybe connect like a disembodied torso to it, because I feel like right now, especially when we come to this 3/4 view, it reminds me a lot of the mobile armor from IBO. And I think we could really capitalize that. And this piece alone has a lot of potential. All in all, I think this kit has so much going for it. I think that all of these parts are utilized really well and that you can use them separately from each other. You can have a really nice Strike Gundam homage to whichever Strike you like better. And they, while still having this backpack to mess around with the whole thing paying an homage to Seed as a whole. And that's really what a good Battlogue kit is all about. Last but not least, we've got all the optional extra bits that were left over. Starting off with the pieces that I accidentally cut off because I can't read the 3rd grade level. These 2 little red parts have lots of neat little lines, which is interesting. I think we could detail those up. I don't know how I would attach them per se, but you know, that's what green stuff's for. Next, we have these connective bits. You could probably fit polycaps in here depending on the size, and then they snap in. Whereas you could create a flexible, articulate little bit, which would be interesting. This part's cool. It could fit in somewhere. The end kind of reminds me of some of the mystery navy pieces from the Barbatoros that I saw. But you could probably fit something in there, like maybe a hip piece. Lots of potential there. The Sea Runner, which has a few molds. The yellow's gone, that clear bit's gone, but we've got some vents, and then, well, more vents, or it could be a booster, depending on how you orient it. It looks like it snaps in on both sides. We have some red bits. These 2 might connect together based on their shapes. An extra little vent cover, and then a piece that looks reminiscent of the part used to snap the V-fin parts together and hold them in place on the head. Not many polycaps left over, which is a little limiting, but we do have a neck piece, which is nice, and some swiveling polycap parts to snap in. This hand, I don't think is actually extra. I just haven't used it to put his gun in his hand. We've got some more swivelly parts to connect things to. Looks like they're not joined on either side by anything, which is nice. So you could like really flex how you want to use it. We have an extra V-fin part in the cover for the hand, a waist section part, which is nice, an extra shield bit, some funnel pieces, and then some other cover parts. Oh, those 2 might lay flat against each other and have something in the middle, which could be cool. Beam saber hilt. Not as many extra parts as the other kits, but I'm not going to complain because this guy is an absolute unit after all. And that's all right. Love him. But nevertheless, we got some options to further customize or make our own thing later when we feel like it. So that's good for me.